astrology, the sun and moon represent the masculine and feminine principles, while Aries and Libra represent the axis of relationships. Tune in when Chris Flisher and his Aries sun go head-to-head with Debra Clement and her Libra moon about a subject near and dear to everyone's heart. Relationships. Will the ram run roughshod over a weltering Libra moon, or will the moon's sweet powers of persuasion stop the Aries beast in his tracks? To find out, tune into a very special presentation of He Says, She Says Astrology with Chris Flisher and Debra Clement.
Welcome. This is Debra Ann Clement, and this is He Says, She Says Astrology, and I am here with my co-host, Chris Flisher, and today we are going to talk about the fabulous fifth house.
Yeah, that's the house of fun. That's the fun house.
It is the fun house. And what's so wonderful about the fifth house is it's similar in a sense to the ninth house. I feel that it's a house of expansion. I mean, when you think about the fifth house and everything it rules, like, it's all good stuff.
It's all good stuff.
Right?
And it really is. And when you have that much goodness in one area, it kind of like, wow, this is great. But I think your analogy or your comparison to the ninth house is good because it's about experience, very much about experience. And an experience is a manifestation of having fun. We go on trips to have fun. We have throw parties to have fun. And that's our whole purpose. And so those are also like, when you travel, that's the ninth house. When you go, even you can consider going back to school could be fun because you're filling your imagination. So like those are all applicable.
And it depends on what you're going to school for. I mean, because sometimes you can go to school, it's like continuing education. You're just maybe going, right, to learn how to do something or take fifth house is also, it's entertainment, of course, which includes, right, big events, little events, going out, dining, movies, theater. But it's also like stadium events, going to sports, right? Participating in sports or just, if you're like me, being more of a spectator.
Yeah, of course. But it's also, of course, we also know that it's the house of children as well. And I like to think of it as, children are expansive in themselves because they are new entities and who've come into the world. I'm a new grandparent. I see this all the time with my grandson, and he really does bring fun into the world. Now, that's not true for everybody, but he in particular does. Perhaps I'm lucky in that regard, but it certainly seems to be very much the case. And that is about expansion. That's about there's a sense of innocence there that comes from that. But innocence really is a sort of an undercurrent of fun because you've got to strike a common chord between everybody in order to make it fun for everybody. If you throw a party, you can't have a party that is dull. You've got to be fun for everyone. So it has to have a sense of innocence to it so it strikes the common denominator.
Well, I think also if you think about fun, because fifth house, right, it's the in natural zodiac is the Leo house. So it's everything we're passionate about.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that includes romantic passion to some degree, right? It's a house of love affairs.
Love affairs, yeah, they can be, for sure. And I think the passion is what drives fun. Fun is what drives passion. And of course, all those themes of fun and creativity as well. So there's a sense of creativity. Creativity is also an expansive. So that kind of gets back to your idea of the ninth house, which I think is appropriate. Well, again, it's about expansion. When you're creating something, you're really expressing your inner self outwardly. So there's a real sense of, creativity typically means something unique and original as well. Mm-hmm. So.
And when we talk about creative, besides, it's creative self-expression, right? Because think about that. It's Leo, it's ruled by the sun. So it's sun connected to our identity. So whatever it is, we're expressing ourselves. Fifth house also, it's a house connected to me to risk, speculation, gambling. And so that fifth house, how willing or not are you to take a risk?
Well, you're asking an Aries.
Rhetorical question.
Rhetorical question. Unfortunately, have taken too many risks in my life. Some good and some bad, but that's hopefully I come out even in the middle of it all somewhere.
Yep. Listen, you're still standing, right?
I'm still standing.
So when we talk about the fifth house, and of course, you can have one of 12 signs right on the cusp of the fifth house. And so what does it describe? Well, it's certainly your attitude towards fun, to things that you're interested in, to just self-expression. But also it is connected to your relationship with children, which might be your own children. It could be other people's children, right, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that in that relationship to children, there's that, again, getting back to that sort of innocence, and innocence I think is directly connected to fun in some way, simply because it has a common theme to it. Even you think, in order for slapstick comedy, which is a creative outlet, in order for slapstick comedy to work, it has to hit us at a very innocent level, a primal level that is unique to all human beings, because we'd all have to recognize that. Now, I know as a woman, you probably didn't like the Three Stooges growing up, but I love the Three Stooges. I've never met a woman yet who likes the Three Stooges.
Shows what you know. Ha ha ha. No, we grew
so
up.
You like the Three Stooges?
We grew up. We watched the Three Stooges. Absolutely. And
did you laugh?
Yeah, I really laughed. Now, I'll be honest, as I got older, did I love all slapstick comedy? No, but I have to say, one of my favorite shows that I will watch in reruns is Third Rock from the Sun, which a lot of times had a lot of slapstick comedy in it at times. I thought it was hysterical. So
there you go.
It's my Sagittarius planets.
Yeah, there you go. So let's do it. Let's start off with Aries on the cusp of the fifth house. If ever there was a person who wanted to party and wanted to party now, it would be the Aries, who says, let's get it on. And where's the juice? They're the ones that want to go plowing headlong into anything. They're the daredevils. So when it comes to fun, when I think of amusement rides, they're the ones maybe that would go on the roller coaster. That's not this Aries, but there's one, at least I'm not at this age, I'm not going to go on a roller coaster. I probably wouldn't come off the roller coaster with a heart beating anymore. So, but I think the idea of fun there does bring in that whole idea of impulsivity. Also being with regard to creativity, you might find someone who wants to be unique and stand outside of the crowd, wants to lead the charge as an Aries typically would. So those are things that come to mind for me right away.
And I will add Aries on the fifth house if you're talking about physical activity like sports, entertainment, but I'm going to especially say sports. Mm-hmm. Aries on the fifth house very often is somebody who is athletic. Could be a team player, may not be on a team sport, but if they are not, there may be something that they're certainly they've got a favorite team. They go to all the games. If they're cheering for a team, you know who the Aries wants to win because they're usually like one of the loudest people in the stands.
But I think that I think you'll find more Aries when it comes to exercise or physical exercise tend to be more loners in that regard, which gets back again to that sort of I am quality of the Aries. And they're the ones that might be on, they may not be on a team, but they're the ones that'll be out there on the bicycle. They may be the solo runner. They may be the solo swimmer. They may be the tennis player who's playing against only one other person. They're not necessarily, I think, team-oriented players per se.
No, and that's why I said they may not be on a team. They may be in the stands. If they are participating, they're on their own because they're competing.
They're competing, but they're very good competitors when it comes to that because they have the Mars aggression they're going. So they typically, what's his name? Michel Gauquelin did this study on Mars in the chart and found that so many athletes have a very strong placement of Mars in their chart, which reflects the Aries energy of being able to be aggressive and competitive.
Absolutely, it is a competitive. It's a competitive sign, and it's even competitive on its own to always do its to beat its own personal best.
Yes, that's the problem. They're kind of hard in that regard.
Now, fifth house is also romance. Mm-hmm. And so Aries on the fifth house, they see it, they like they want to take it home. Yep. It is that, what is it? It was something in haste. It used to be marry in haste, repent in leisure. But the point is, very passionate when they, interested, excited, give it all, come on strong. But if they lose interest, they're gone just as quick.
Oh yeah, that's very true. So you've got to have some sort of sustaining quality that holds the Aries' attention, otherwise it'll be gone. So they may grasp for the shiny object, but it has to continue to shine.
That's true. Yeah.
If it doesn't shine for long, if the shine wears off, they may be looking for a new shiny object.
And then you have to ignore them for a bit. Then you ignore them for a bit, and then all of a sudden they realize they're not missing me. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Why are they not missing me? I haven't called them. They haven't called me. Could there be somebody else?
Yeah.
Yep. Then they're back.
Sure.
Then they're back.
Funny.
Taurus.
Oh, Taurus.
Taurus on the fifth house, and in terms of And I'm going to start with the creativity, actually, because Taurus has a strong, certainly, appreciation at the very least for for creative things. So they very often, things that they like to do, you may find them in some type, I'm going to say to you, of an art gallery or a museum, or they may be, I don't know, throwing clay and, doing pottery. But there's this appreciation in terms of that self-expression. When it comes to the physical, Taurus fifth house, a lot of times it's things of endurance. I'm not saying that they're rowing, but they may be weightlifting, just things that have to do with more of endurance type of sports if they are involved in something like that.
Weightlifting, I think, is actually true. I think food would be a great outlet for them as far as expression, being able to make big lavish dinners and, big heavy roasts and stuff like that. That's sort of right up their alley. That's the sort of, and of course there's a creativity that comes out of it as well. But there's that sort of, and gardening as well would be a creative outlet for them because they like to have their hands dirty.
But the entertaining, like parties and yes, with a good food, good drink. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, for sure, for that. When we come to Gemini, we see the Gemini has of course, we know Geminis are that sort of that on again, off again, easy come, easy go kind of personality, which is a dualistic sign in that regard. So there is that tendency to flip-flop, or at least maybe not flip-flop, but at least to be quick in their pursuits, so that they may spend. I've always said that the Geminis can do 7 or 8 things at once, and usually do them all successfully because their attention span is limited to just getting things done. So when it comes to being creative, I think the Gemini would easily express themselves through words and through action, through sort of being a radio host or a television personality or a teacher or art teacher, something like that. Someone who's able to use words and their personal persona as a way to express.
No, I will definitely agree with that. It's not always a sign that is the most into a physical activity like sports, things of that nature. It's more on the intellectual level in terms of what they're passionate about. And I just actually want to just go back to Taurus for 1 second and just say romantically speaking, because Taurus is loyal. Taurus usually takes relationships seriously. They can be slow to commit. Do want to say that when it comes to romance, but what they need and what they're attracted to in that partner when they go out there, they are looking, again, when we talk about quality with Taurus, looks do matter. There's Taurus on the 5th house when it comes to romance. Looks do matter. Mm-hmm. Gemini, on the other hand, Gemini in the 5th house, I don't care how good the person looks in the morning. If they're perceived as, I hate to say dull, stupid, whatever, they don't stay, they're not staying for breakfast.
No, they're not. They're out the door.
Right. They're out the door. But Gemini is a very social sign.
Yes, very much so.
And I have found also with Gemini, I'm just going to say on the 5th house, when it comes to children, I just want to say this because where Taurus on the 5th house can be very nurturing, certainly with children. Gemini, it's Mercury ruled.
Removed.
Yeah, it can be a little bit more removed. And very often I just see as a pattern, a lot of times when it comes to people with Gemini on the 5th, if they have children, usually these are not the families with the 5 kids. It's usually, very often it could be one and done. Virgo also on the 5th, it's usually a small family. It's that Mercury rulership.
Yeah, I think what you see there is I don't want to say detachment, but I do want to say aloofness when it comes to sort of since their relationship is more intellectually based, they are going to be more inclined to like older children as opposed to younger children.
Yeah, they're not always baby people.
Repartee back.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But Cancer.
Yeah, well, one thing I was going to say about Gemini, just slipped my mind. So keep going. Just keep going. I'll get back to it. But anyway,
feel free. You just interrupt.
I was going to say that the idea of when you talk about the fun part of Gemini and the fun part, when it comes to a party, say just put this in your mind as a visual. When it comes to the party, the Gemini is going to be the one that knows everybody in the room and will be having 6 or 7 conversations around the room because they are the chatty Cathys of the room and they love to talk and to mix it up with lots of talk in that regard. So that's what I was going to say.
No, that makes sense.
Cancer.
Oh, yeah. So Cancer on the 5th house. If we're talking about, and I'm going to start with children here, just with Cancer, because it certainly is nurturing. Usually, that Cancer on the 5th house is usually good with babies, not just children, but it's good with babies with the nurturing. Cancer on the 5th also interests, hobbies. Sometimes they too can have a green thumb, not just a Taurus, because it is from that nurturing and cultivating and all that, all that type of nice stuff. Not like I've got a plant. I'm trying to keep it alive. I mean, like, oh my God. I don't.
Have you tried water?
Yes, I've tried water and sun, and I'm like, grow. Yeah, I just don't. I don't have that. I'm trying to talk to it nicely too.
Yeah.
I do not have that. I do not have that green thumb. But romantically, because Cancer is a bit of a romantic sign, could be a little bit shy, quite honestly. But Cancer and Taurus, because to me the signs do have a lot in common, and Cancer also is not at all interested, generally, like in the one night stands. It's looking for a real relationship.
Again, security.
The truth is Taurus is a very lusty sign, and they could actually sort of, go out and have some fun and say, okay, I'm done. But not Cancer. Cancer is like, they're waiting. You better call them.
Mm-hmm. But I think that when it comes to creativity, they have a certain intuitive a desire to create. I think you're absolutely right about their nurturing and the children. They're excellent when it comes to that. I've never met a Cancer person who didn't go crazy over kids and wasn't the most loving, nurturing person on the block. They're the ones that that's the house all the kids would go to after school. They get the cookies and the hot chocolate and stuff like that. The mother who would be running that house. So I think that makes perfect sense. To have that be there. And as far as creativity goes with the Cancer, they might be, again, it would probably be more brought out in the way of food. Like, again, getting back to what you said about Taurus, there's this desire to nurture. And nurturing is the best way to nurture is through food and the actual physical creation of food for others as well. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
When we come to Leo.
Leo.
Leo is the one who rules this house. And they are the loud, flamboyant, proudest person in the room. They're the peacock in the room that everybody notices and everybody can't keep their eyes off of. They tend to have a largesse about them that just, you feel immediately brought into their sort of charisma of sorts. And, they have this great, so I see them, I've got a friend of mine who's an engineer, and he's a Leo, and he is constantly, if he's not creating something, he's not happy. So he loves to create, and he loves to invent, and he loves to put all his thoughts and ideas into creating. So that's a very strong quality for him.
Leo on the fifth house, a lot of teachers. I find a lot of teachers, because they're great with kids, whether they may not even have their own kids, it doesn't matter, but they are great with kids, and they do have that. When I say childlike, I don't mean immaturity, but they do have that. They get kids, and there's that fun element. So they're usually very, very good teachers, creatively speaking, only because you talk about the creating, but the attention, they're comfortable. Leo in the fifth house very often is drawn to, being in front of a camera or in the spotlight and teaching. Look, everyone's eye is on you, right? Hopefully the kids are today. They might all be on their phones, but hopefully.
Well, that would be the teacher who could get them off their phones.
Yeah. Good point.
That's the teacher who could get them off the phones. Would be a Leo teacher, because they have enough panache and enough, flamboyance to sort of extract the attention away from the phones, or they would do something outlandish to get their attention. And
if they don't actually perform themselves, because whether they sing or they play music or they like to dance, they usually are. These are people you will find at the theater. At the movies. And
a good example of a creative Leo would be a Mick Jagger, someone who loves, he's the classic Leo. he's just out there parading and prancing around with scarves flying and all his gesturations. He is, he's a nail. He's classically nails the Leo creativity piece.
No, he absolutely does. And when it comes to romance, Leo is the sign, right? It's the sign that rules romance. They're not in love with love in the sense of sometimes the Pisces sense of it, but they really enjoy romance. When they're not in a relationship, it's not that they're depressed or they can't get on, but they are so much better when they are involved in some type of some type of a love affair, or romance. They enjoy
it's a romance that is supported, that puts them into a spotlight as well. I'd say they would be with a partner who wants to support them and put them into the spotlight. And it's not intimidated by that.
No, they need someone with a strong ego.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then completely different energy. You go from Leo to Virgo.
Completely different. You go from the I light up the room to I'm in the corner quiet. I'm helping everybody run around. I'm the one serving all the food. The Virgo's out there serving all the food at the party.
And cleaning up the mess, right?
I always think of Felix Unger, running around with his spray bottle, cleaning the house up after Oscar in the Odd Couple. But I think as far as creativity goes, they would also be excellent with regard, because they got that Mercury ruler, the idea of communicating or some sort of personal expression that deals with communication or words in some capacity, however that manifests itself, or even with fine detailed work, because they love detailed work. So you could see them being very detail-oriented, maybe like with doing embroidery or drawing, detailed drawings of some sort, which requires a certain sense of precision.
Virgo on the 5th, which I have, so I'm going to speak to that. Okay. The interest, the hobbies, the social, and, by nature, I am a social person, but I'm not the biggest party person. Like, I'm not like, oh, I want to throw a party. Oh, I want to, no. We're not the party throwers, but we do go to them. I won't say I'm in the corner of the room because I have Gemini rising, but it isn't certainly the most extroverted sign when it comes to, I'm just going to say the social activities. I don't think Virgo on the 5th really initiates them, but in terms of the interests, the passions, the hobbies, they are a little bit more when you say detailed, but I will say that Mercury ruled of the intellect. So things like, it could be crosswords, it could be logic puzzles. It could
Scrabble.
be, you mentioned embroidery, and I was also going to mention like things like baking, where you are following something like a recipe, something precise, as well. But the intellect is involved with it as well. Not usually when it comes to sports, like I say, not usually. You don't usually find them, at all the sporting events.
No, it's true. And I think there's also something about the cleanliness and the tidiness that comes along with that. I have got Virgo rising, and I swear this is going to sound odd, but I actually like cleaning the kitchen. I'm not sure why, but I do. When we have a party or a dinner over here, I'm always the one that puts all the dishes in the dishwasher, cleans all the dishes, and puts them away. And I just love that. I mean, I don't know why. I get a real thrill out of it. It's a sense of accomplishment. So that sort of speaks to the idea of that service-oriented personality.
That is. No, that's
manifesting it.
Certainly in the sun sign, I will say Virgo. Yeah, when it comes to cleaning and organizing, they are the best. When it comes to relationships, I'm just going to comment on romance. Similar to Gemini, okay. There's got to be that intellectual connection. There's got to be conversation.
Got to be conversation. Absolutely has to have some sort of conversation. And they're a little bit more pragmatic with their conversation. They're a little bit more attentive than perhaps the Gemini is, I think. Simply by virtue, they like to get sort of more of the details, more of the facts out, where the Gemini might just gloss over them. It just takes a sort of the superficial top of the cream of the crop or whatever. The Virgo wants a little more detail behind that, and also likes the idea, of course, service is very much a Virgo characteristic. So however that ties into the world of creativity and children, you'll find the Virgo there. So
they're clean. Yep.
When it comes to children, they're the ones who are probably, they may not be as warm as a Cancer, but they certainly have the attention and the service behind them of trying to make that whole thing work, whatever that's babysitting or raising children or whatever. There's a sense of detail that has to go with that.
No, that's true. I agree. Now then you move on to Libra. Now here, if we're talking about social and parties and entertainment, whole nother energy here, because
totally
Libra loves to be the hostess or the host, and they also love to be the guest. They're great facilitators. They're great at going to parties or inviting people and saying, oh, so-and-so, this is my friend, and just natural ability to bring people together. Mm-hmm. So that nobody is standing off in that corner by themselves, not even somebody with a lot of Virgo in the chart.
They'll bring them in.
Yes.
And then also when it comes to the creativity piece, they're the ones I think who you see a lot of people who are like interior designers, who love to pick colors for the walls, who likes to get the room to work, who likes to get the clothes to work, or likes to get the makeup to work, or wants to get the hair to work. I mean, I know
ambiance.
Yeah, ambiance. It's all about the ambiance. Is a great word. It's all about the ambiance of the scene. So the nice soft lighting, the candles on the table, the nice tablecloths, all that stuff going on with the fresh flowers, all that. That's very much of a creative outlet for that.
Yeah. When it comes to children, and I find that Libra on the fifth house. And I don't want to say they don't like to get their hands dirty, but again, I am going to say it's an air sign. So when it gets easier, I feel, when the children do get a little older, when they're able to converse, and it's not that they don't like being parents, but it's a little bit of drudgery for them. The stage where it's just, let's face it, we're just feeding, burping, changing diapers. There's that part of it.
Conversation when they're talking back and you can interact with them. As a 2 or 3 year old, then things become a lot more exciting. It's much easier than a 3-month-old. Sure.
So Libra on the 5th house, you'll find, I feel like moms, Libra on the 5th house, they will be at those mommy and me groups, for the social, for that type of social interaction, because they do need that.
Yeah, they do. When we come to Scorpio on the fifth house cusp, we see, a lot of the same Scorpio traits that we mentioned in other podcasts. We have a sort of a Scorpio banner that we have that gives them this certain sense of characteristics. We see a great sense of loyalty. Obviously, we also see an intensity there. We see a real dedication. They're a fixed water sign, so there's going to be all this intuitive stuff going on. There's going to be sort of this great loyalty to family and to children, and they may not be as crazy a partier, but they do have a good time at the party. I think they're more observers in some respects, sort of overhearing conversations to hear who's saying what about what, stuff like that.
They leave the party knowing everything about everybody, and everyone says, "Who was that masked man? We don't know."
And they remember everything, which is even crazier.
Well, sure, in case they want to blackmail you with it. No, I'm only kidding. But when it comes to sports, okay, let's say physical activities, and of course, right until Pluto was discovered, what ruled Scorpio but Mars? And so Scorpio on the 5th tends to be more of, I'm going to say, the lone wolf when it comes to it, though they're very often rough sports as well, like when say football, but also things like the martial arts with Scorpio, because it's that mind is connected, the whole mind-body discipline.
Mm-hmm. Very much of a scorpionic undertaking. I think all martial arts, for that matter, whether it be judo or karate or whatever, very much so. And then, of course, when you get into the Mars piece of it, there's a certain sense of, you might see a rough sport like rugby or something like that could easily come into play with that. And,
romantically, I really feel, Scorpio, it's
a bad rap.
No, it does, because the truth of the matter is I really feel that Scorpio, when they look at relationships, they're really looking at whether they say it or not. The attitude is they're looking for that person from here through eternity. They're not, and so can it be a little bit of a jealous sign? Yes. So can Taurus. They tend to be a little possessive, and but every sign, right, has its upside and it's a little bit of a shadow side. But it can be it's a devoted sign.
Devoted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually one of the better signs to be involved with if you were looking for. If you've ever been burnt in the past in your life and you want stability and you want loyalty, find somebody who's a Scorpio and you'll get that from them.
Just don't cross them, because they never forget.
They will never forget. And once they've got that down, once they've got your number, you're screwed.
Now, Sagittarius. Yeah. And here you've got Sagittarius. It's like the sign of expansion, and there it is on this on the 5th house of fun. And so I always think life is a cabaret. Gambling. Okay, I want to go right there because talk about speculation, taking risks. Sagittarius on the 5th house. Not saying you see them all in casinos, but they are more prone to take risks, even when it comes to physical activities. They're more likely to, I don't know, I'm not going to say they're going to jump out of an airplane, maybe it's a zip line or whatever, but there is just this...
well, it's adventure.
Yeah, it's adventure.
Whatever spells adventure is where you're going to see it. And so adventure was always going to be there. And, the idea of how you have fun through adventure is a great way. I mean, adventures in themselves can be incredibly fun. That's the whole reason we do them. It's about the experience. The experience is what drives the Sagittarius, because they want to have that memorable time of going on the zip line or jumping out of an airplane or doing bungee jumping, whatever. That's what they look for. They said sort of expansive, adventurous. And as long as it fills those two voids, you really got it. When it comes to children, I think they, they may have a desire to sort of, nurture the child, or imbue the child with a sense of adventure.
I'll agree with that. I also think, again, I'm going to use the word youth, like teens. I think they're great with teens because they're natural, in many ways, they're natural teachers, natural mentors. Mm-hmm. There's a friendliness about them. That's why even in their social activities, a sense of camaraderie.
Very approachable, approachable people. And they're very, agreeable, easy to get along with as a rule, not ones who really typically make waves.
Comes to romance, you can't smother them. There's a very friendly quality, there's a casualness sometimes to their approach to relationships when it comes to romance. And
the casualness can be misconstrued, but I think it is more based on their own personal desires. I think that they can be aloof. Not aloof is not the right word, but casual is the right word. I'm just going to let you sit with casual.
No, I think it is. It's just more of casual. They're not going to sit there and wax poetic and talk about their feelings. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
They're interested in making memories.
Mm-hmm. That's all about the experience. It gets back to the adventure, and that's why anything that's expansive. The experience is all about going someplace and immersing yourself in a foreign culture, or immersing yourself in some sort of new place you've never been before. That's the adventure.
Yes, unlike now, you move to Capricorn.
Right.
Okay.
Much different.
Much different energy. Capricorn on the 5th house, when you're talking about children, takes a lot of responsibility. It takes parenting very serious. I'm not saying that it's a strict parent, but it takes the whole parenting. All the necessities get met. And that can be a little bit of an aloof parenting style at times.
Well, it becomes sort of procedural as opposed to based in emotion. It's more of a practicum. It's more of a pragmatic approach to, well, let's make sure this is all done right, as opposed to having the gushy love. There's not this sort of sappy romance going on there. It's more about what's pragmatic, what makes this thing work. How do we get it done?
Getting the job done right.
Getting the job done right. Yeah, it's a Saturn. It's a responsibility. And the responsibility is about that precision. And I think creatively, having the Capricorn in the 5th house has it is about structure. It's about structure. Like a musician who's a Capricorn, with a musician who might be with a 5th house Capricorn, might be very concerned about the pragmatic details of how the music is presented. Is it correct? Is it responsible? Is it doing the right thing? Are we here at the right practice at the right time? That's the sort of thing I think you'd see, that sort of dedication to getting this thing done the right way.
What I do find with Capricorn on the 5th, and I'm just saying about the creative, I do find very often these people are extremely creative. A lot of times this creative talent, especially if I'm going to say something, let's say music or acting, they don't always get the chance to do it when they're younger. A lot of times I see it getting developed, just judging by the clients that I have, when they're older. Mm-hmm. Romantically, I will say that depends on the rest of the chart, but romantic happiness sometimes does come a little later in life. I don't mean that everybody is over 40 or anything like that, but a lot of times it does come a little bit later. If all the friends are getting married, I don't know, at 28, the person may be, 33, but a lot of times it just does that whole Saturn in a little bit of delay. I find it more likely if Capricorn's on the 5th, and I'm just going to say in Pisces is on the 7th. They don't settle, and that's part of it.
Right. I think what they're longing for answers that are pragmatic and are solutions oriented and are responsible. And some of those things may not come through the relationship until more time has been accrued. It's sort of you got to prove it, and they sort of want to prove it beyond what most people would do. They want to go further when it comes to the pragmatism. Is this really the right thing to do? Right. And I think that they can be very good, especially I've seen some, Capricorns in this position who have dogs who are very attentive to the dog and very devoted to the dog, but it's always about where's the collar, where's the food, sort of these pragmatic things about the dog, as opposed to, give me a big hug, doggy.
That's interesting. And then you get to Aquarius.
Yeah.
So Aquarius is another sign that I think Aquarius on the 5th house, from what I've seen, they're great with kids and they're great with young people. They don't treat kids like, I don't want to say little idiots, but they don't. There's a respect there.
They almost treat them like young, small adults.
They really do.
And they approach them because, again, what they want more than anything else, they want that intellectual connection because they're an air sign. They want to have that intellectual connection. And I think when you think of Aquarius as the collective sign, this is the sort of person who would do well in a creative environment, in a school, for example, where their impact can be felt by many. And they leave an imprint on many people by their acts that they perform. So I think that's an important piece of who they are. And I think you'd find them in, as far as creativity goes. I think again it may come down to words, or because it's got that sort of Uranus kind of quality to it. There may be something that's more a little bit off the beaten path, a little bit more progressive, a little bit more out there when it comes to being personal expression through whatever art there may be.
When it comes to sports, here you're more likely to see a team player. Also socializing. Groups might be meetup groups, might be going to hear a lecture, because there's usually something they're interested in, a topic. And I'm going to say that's the intellectual connection. Very often learning something, being able to have this discussion. And the topics, of course, may be, to other people, they may be considered, let's say, offbeat.
Right, exactly.
Romantic.
Well, at least different, because they tend to be pioneers in that regard. I think that they have a desire to hit something that hasn't been discovered before, perhaps more innovative in that regard.
Romantically, Aquarius on the 5th house. Aquarius is in a personal sign. It's not, doesn't do I would say the best with one-to-one. It's much more at ease, right, with group relationships. And it doesn't mean, of course, it doesn't have happy romantic relationships, but it does need a lot of freedom. This is a sign on the fifth house that is really looking for an equal, for a partner.
Right. This is where if the intellect isn't there, it's not going to happen. It can't be purely physical. It has to be some sort of intellectual connection that is stimulating their brain in a way that makes them feel as if they're with their intellectual equal. They're looking for their intellectual equal, someone they can pass ideas back and forth with.
They're looking for respect as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and depth. Yeah. They can't be superficial. It's got to be deep.
Nope. And then we get to Pisces.
Pisces are great creators. There's no question about it. I think that dreamlike quality that they have, that ability to be mystical and go beneath the covers and sort of look through the lens of the Neptunian fantasy, allows them to be very creative with regard to film. I think film is a great place. They could be film and photography. Colors is also very much in case. And I think that they have especially there's a nurturing quality to them, but there's also, because there is this. I don't want to say aloof because that's not the right word, but there is this sort of detachment or spaciness to them.
Neptune's influence.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So.
But imagination, absolutely. They have this wonderful imagination that when it's on the fifth house, besides painting, writing,
very much so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or all sort of spiritual pursuits, for that matter. Whatever that can be considered to be a hobby or creativity. It's sort of
absolutely
this pursuit of the great meaning of why we're here. This is always a big Piscean quality. You see a lot of people in the religious business who have that sort of the Piscean quality.
And when it comes to romance, this is a little bit of, very often, like in love with love.
In love with love. The concept of love as opposed to. Yeah.
But in the end, they don't settle. Pisces does not, at the end, it's like on some level, it's like my perfect partner is out there, or my soulmate is out there, and they don't settle. They may get it wrong a few times before they get it right, but they don't settle.
But the problem with that is that they may always be looking and never finding. And as a result, they always say there's something better out there somewhere. And that can be a frustrating kind of experience for them if they're being too fussy about that. The ideal person may not exist. You have to find one with flaws somewhere. Somewhere,
yes. Well, I'm sure you can find them with flaws very easily. Come on. No, but right. That is true. And did we talk about kids with Pisces?
No, not really. So they I think they have a certain intuition and a certain nurturing quality to them because they're
water
sign. Yeah, mutable water signs. So they're going to have. Empathy is going to be big for them. They may be the kind of mother or parent that allows their children to get away with things because they sort of feel empathetic for them. They feel sorry for them in some way. There's a sense of, I want that pack of gum. Well, you really, okay, you can have that pack of gum, sort of that kind of thing, because they don't want to cause the water to ripple.
I think they're also very, and I'm going to use the word, for lack of a better one, nurturing when it comes to children's talents or abilities, letting their kids express themselves. That I think they're very encouraging with letting them develop. And I'm going to say also at their own pace. Pisces on the fifth house is not going to be, the parent, the typically, stereotypical little league dad. It's like, you gotta get up there. No, not at all.
And what's interesting about this whole discussion is that when we're talking about this, when you look at your charts, those of you who are listening, you would determine who's on the cusp based on your rising sign, which will set the orients the chart. And your chart, you'll then set the cusp for all the houses going around your wheel. When you do that and you run your chart, you'll see where you are. This will all make sense. So a lot of the things we're talking about here do pertain to the individual characteristics of the signs and the individual characteristics of the houses. But it's that when you mix that peanut butter and jelly sandwich together, that's what you get.
No, it is. It's blending those qualities, those traits with the areas that, the life areas and whatever else it could be, sometimes talents that the house happens to represent.
Yeah, that's it. So that's the fifth house. And so we're moving our way through these houses, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with some more houses.
Absolutely. We'll be back with 8 and 11, right?
8 and 11.
8 and 11. Interesting houses. All right. So then we will see everybody back then.
Okay. There you go. Very good. He says goodbye.
She says farewell.
Take care.